right, we're going to look at the coordinate plane here, and we're going to label the parts of the coordinate plane. So left to right, you have an axis running. This is called your x-axis. From top to bottom, you have an axis that's running. It's called the y-axis. So I've labeled both of those. In each quadrant, you are given a Roman numeral to name that quadrant. This is quadrant 1. And I'm going to write the name next to it just because some people may not be super familiar with Roman numerals. That's okay. To the left here we have quadrant 2. Down on the bottom left we have quadrant 3. And then on the bottom right we have quadrant 4. Now in the center of our graph we have a point that's very important. It's point 0, 0, and we call this the origin. And the reason it's important is whenever you go to graph a point, you're going to start at the origin and then move from there. So let's say that we have a point, an x and a y value here in quadrant 1. If we start at the origin, we would have to move right on the x-axis, which would be positive, and then we would move up, which is also going to be positive. Let's go over to quadrant 2 and do the same thing. Let's say that we had a point here, an x and a y value. If we start at the origin, we would have to move left for x, which is negative, and then up for y, which is positive. In quadrant 3, same thing. We have an x and y value. If we start at the origin, we would have to move left on x, which would be negative, and then down on y, which would also be negative. And finally, in quadrant 4, if we had an x and y value there for a point, we would have to move to the right on the x-axis, which would be positive, and then down on the y, which would be negative.